In our first story tonight, the Trades Union Congress, TUC, has asked government to scale up its support for businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Director of Labour Research and Policy Institute, Kwabena Nyako Otu, says such support should be on condition that businesses maintain their employees. Speaking at a forum held in collaboration with the Friedrich Ebers think tank, Mr. Nyako Otu also cautioned government is likely to breach Fiscal Responsibility Act meant to regulate its spending as the crisis lingers.
So for us, it is crucially important to support businesses, but also ensure that those businesses keep their workers. In keeping their workers, you maintain a certain level of consumption, which is good for the economy. At the same time, it helps the businesses. But once the crisis passes, they don't have to be going around looking for workers with the required skills. Because like the Secretary General explained, the situation of the hospital in Kumasi, they themselves are afraid that if they let the workers go, when the storm passes, they may face difficulty in getting nurses of the same level of experience. So it is crucially important that we extend support, but also make sure that the support goes to save jobs. And the government has much deeper pockets than ordinary workers and ordinary businesses, you understand? That is why also in our report we have suggested a means of financing some of these measures. Okay, so we are not just proposing, but we are also offering solutions on how you finance. And as the Secretary General indicated, we are in talks at various levels of government on how we work out a scheme in which government assists businesses and workers, and also make sure that it doesn't throw government finances and projections out of gear. Such laws like the Fiscal Responsibility Act are made for normal times. And once you are not in the normal times, it is not possible to keep the things you did in normal times. So, of course, it's not just somebody's wish to break the act, but the thing has been forced down our throat by a pandemic we have no control over.
Now, Haughty Fresh, an organization which supports commercial food and vegetable sector development in West Africa, says it is currently conducting an assessment of how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected farmers. Program manager Sheila Esibe-Abua says her outfit is hoping to roll out a support program to save the vegetable business in Ghana.
You know, the vegetable sector is huge, largely informal. We are talking about the domestic market. It's largely informal, with the exception of some high-end markets. I saw your report on the hotels and some of the supermarket chains where they're able to structure their supply chains and keep them a bit formal. But a lot of our assessment is based on the experiences of these sector actors, and you know that very little data is available, so we don't have scientific evidence, but then bits and pieces from the sector. So a lot of learning has gone into the sector during this pandemic.
And just on just on the domestic market, but the export market too. Tell me about that experience as well.
Yeah, so the export market is, I would say, significantly impacted because it's not only the production bit, but then also what goes up. If you look at the exports, borders were closed. That affected how goods could move. We've been told by these exporters that their freight has gone up by up to 50%. Volumes had to decrease by about 30%, and this is because of logistical challenges. Thanks to the management of AGPC and Swissport that ensured that there was a dedicated cargo flight to get things moving. Even that, it was just once a week. And so volumes had to be slashed by up to 60%. The highlight, though, which is quite interesting, is the demand increased. We are told demand has gone up by anywhere between 50 to 100%. And this is because of the gap that has been left by the Latin American markets. They were the major, I would say, suppliers of some of these export vegetables that we send, and because of the effect of COVID in those countries, Ghana, or most of the international markets, are looking to Africa, and for that matter, Ghana. And so I think it's high time we take advantage of that and try to tap into that market, not only to just meet the demand gap, but then also to sustain those markets.
Okay, and so I'm told that you have conducted, or you are conducting, an impact assessment, and that will inform what kind of assistance you can give to farmers and others in the value chain. Where are you at with that?
It's still ongoing. It's still ongoing. We are still on it because, like I said, data is not readily available in one piece. So we have to pick it from real sector actors who are getting their fingers in on a daily basis. So we had many things. If you look at supply was okay. But then in the beginning, because of the perceived, this is about the domestic market in Ghana, because of the perceived lockdown or pending lockdown, people panicked. There was panic buying. And also, we hear from the transporters that they had a hell of a time on the road. So most of them wouldn't want to go ahead and bring produce and lose out. So most of the produce were left at the farm gates, and then prices also were affected here in some of the urban markets. Whenever that happens, you know that.
All right. Now, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has imported modernized farming equipment for small-scale farmers under the Planting for Food and Jobs program. The equipment, made up of multi-purpose tractors, will be given out to farmers at 50% subsidy. My colleague Bismarck Awusa joined a team on a field trip to the Awutu Camp prison at Kaswa and has filed the following report.
As part of government's vision to equip especially small and medium-scale farmers under the Planting for Food and Jobs program, the Agric Ministry has imported some farm equipment. The Czech Republic credit facility will be sold to Ghanaian farmers under 50% subsidy. Director of the ministry's Agricultural Engineering Services Directorate is Amatus Diang.
The problem we have in this country that farmers have is harvesting of rice. And if you don't harvest on time, one, you have shuttering in the field, will lead to post-harvest losses. So if you're able to harvest on time, you're able to cook a lot of produce from the farm. And you harvest at the right time, you don't lose so much. With this equipment, harvesting will be done early. We actually spend so much money to import rice. So if we are able to produce rice locally, that import bill will cut down. Yes, so we are worried. So we have to produce enough to feed ourselves.
The demonstration of the multi-purpose tractors was held in the Awutu Camp prison at Kaswa. According to 9th AS suppliers of the tractors, the equipment comprises passive and active accessories such that the farmer only requires the gearbox to switch between the implements from slashing to plowing through to harvesting. Chief Executive of the company, Dr. Carl Lai, says the equipment seeks to graduate peasant farmers from the use of hoes and cutlasses to modernized equipment.
A farmer doesn't need to wait for a big combine harvester to move from one farm to other before it gets to his farm. Once you're having the tractor, we've given you an accessory, which is what we designed. And I can tell you that what we designed, I don't know, I don't want to boast, but I haven't seen it any over here. It was the Ministry of Food and Agriculture which requested us to do this thing. So we don't sell tractors, we sell solutions. And you should be rest assured that all these tractors are coming from the Czech Republic, which is EU. And you should know that there are strict rules and regulations when you are manufacturing anything from any EU country.
President of Nyonkodo Farmers Association, Rebecca Aboagye, lauded the initiative.
Machines here, baby. Me shame could say, "And my fool, I'm sorry."
We are thankful to government for these tractors. I believe it will help us in various ways. I urge my fellow farmers to patronize these equipments.
Sorry, machines.
Chief Superintendent William Anaman of the Awutu Camp prison is hopeful the tractors will help smallholder farmers improve production.
The National Buffer Stock Company says Cabinet is calling on both local and international companies to support the poultry value chain, especially processing eggs into powder. Odilia Ntiamwa spoke to CEO of the Buffer Stock Company, Abdul Wahab Hanan Aludiba, who says they will be willing to buy the powder from producers and store.
I know that when it comes to a national buffer stock, it may not necessarily be just skewed towards storage of food in relation to just grains. There was a recent egg glut. It's still persisting. How do we hope to be able to take advantage of such gluts and store, probably process and store some of these items?
Yeah, it's a major concern to us all. This issue has been discussed at Cabinet. You know, the COVID-19 has really exposed a lot of things. Today, second cycle institutions have been closed down and some other institutions. And that has contributed greatly to the glut of eggs that we see, you understand, because they were relying, because when you look at buffer stock, we are responsible for the feeding component of the free senior high school. So we are supplying them with 18 non-perishable food items. So perishable items like egg, meat, and other fruits and vegetables, those ones are procured by the schools on a daily basis because a certain percentage of the feeding component is sent back to the schools so that they will procure the food items on a daily, the perishable food items on a daily basis. So should we get a processing company that can actually process or increase the shelf life of these food items, then we can deal with it, sign an MOU with that company and let the company develop the capacity to supply nationwide of this, so that farmers that produces egg, poultry farmer that produces egg will supply to the company and the company will process it and then keep it. So we are getting there and calling on everyone to come on board. But today, we are very happy to tell Ghanaians that we are supplying 100% Ghana rice to all the second cycle institutions. Acceptability, fantastic. You take foreign rice or imported rice to Laboni Secondary School, they will turn you down because we have been able to change the taste and preference of the student. It's one of our greatest achievements and target that we have made. So we are still working to fine-tune the system, and then our major concern now is to have these warehouses operational so that we can, because even if buffer stock is even going to borrow, you borrow against your space.
You're watching Business Live. Away from our Greek economist, Courage Mate has described as inevitable plans by government to raise fresh funds. Government is looking to raise almost 20 billion cedis in bonds and treasury bills for the third quarter of this year. This should mean that it would be actually seeking a little over 2 billion cedis in fresh cash from investors. Although the country's debt stock is ballooning, Mr. Mate says the COVID-19 pandemic has made it impossible not to borrow.
This is inevitable, but let's start by saying that about 89% of the total or gross issuance target is just to roll over existing debt. So the debt portfolio will not change because of the 89% component of the total issuance. However, the new borrowings will be about 2 billion cedis, which would be the addition to the debt portfolio in this particular window. But then again, if you contrast this particular calendar with the just ended calendar, you also notice that this new borrowing of about 2 billion cedis is about half of what the previous calendar targeted to do. So it means that in this new calendar, the borrowing is quite less compared to the previous calendar. Essentially, there's a signal that the government or the treasury is sending to the market that, well, normally you have deficits that you have to fund through borrowings, right? But COVID-related issues has widened the deficits. Notwithstanding this widening of the deficit, government signal to the market is that they are intent on borrowing at a cost that would not jeopardize the debt sustainability outlook and the strategy. So you would notice that they've done non-concessional financing from the IMF and World Bank. Then over the last couple of weeks or months, we've seen interest rates on the downturn. so that if they have to do market borrowings, it will be coming at a lower interest rate compared to the historical past or the maturing debts.
I guess you can anticipate my next question to do with our ballooning debt and what this implies.
Well, yes. So for as long as the deficit widens, and that means you have to spend more than the revenue you mobilize, even worsened by the exogenous shocks of COVID-19, and government will have to fund that deficit. So we shouldn't be surprised to see a surge, a steep rise in the debt portfolio. Now, careful movement must be made, because if you look at the end of last year, the fiscal data showed that the interest payment as a ratio of our total revenue increased by 4% to 37% of our total revenue. Now, with an increase in the debt stock expected this year further up, there is a risk of interest payment consuming further parts of our revenue. And that is why we must emphasize less expensive debts, interest-free and non-concessional debts going forward, so that even though the total debt stock will go up because of COVID-related widening of the deficit, the cost structure of the debt will be firmly under grip.
So that's what you propose, less expensive debt, so that we can strike the balance amid the concerns that we are borrowing too much?
Yes, absolutely, because the debt accumulation, given the extraordinary times we find ourselves in, is inevitable, and it is happening around the world. So central banks are even funding government, and that is a debt. It's just that it's not an open market debt, right? So the debt accumulation is inevitable. How or at what cost did you accumulate this debt? This will be what investors and the market will be watching to determine your debt sustainability outlook.
Well, back to our stories on the impact of COVID-19. The General Secretary of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU, Solomon Kote, has admitted that most businesses under the union have been hit by COVID-19 pandemic. He says the hospitality industry is one of the greatest affected. Alberta Bisu reports.
It's been months since Ghana announced its COVID-19 cases, and the numbers keep rising. Some businesses have been hit hard during this pandemic. Here at the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, I find out how members of this union have been affected by this pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has become a threat to many businesses. The aviation and the hospitality sectors have been greatly affected. This is according to the General Secretary of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU, Solomon Kote. He, however, regrets Holiday Inn's failure to pay workers since April.
With the hospitality center, their rate of occupancy determines their performance and their productivity. And to a large extent, over 70% of their occupancy is patronized by foreigners, is patronized by those who travel in and out. Currently, most of them are operating at the levels of 2% and 3% and 1%, which is not good enough to break even. But the great thing they have all done, except Holiday Inn, is that they've managed to pay the workers at least 50%, 75%, 50% in that order. From March, they paid 100%, April 100%, May, some have paid 60%, 75, 50, depending upon the capacity and the kind of reserves that they have. Then again, with the government coming in to look at that sector specifically and wanting to vote over 3 billion or so to see how it can, one, sustain the business and at the same time help alleviate the pains and the difficulty of the employees who are out there. And at the moment, we say thumbs up to all the general managers except Holiday Inn, who have not done the needful. As of now, he has not paid the workers April, May, and we have entered into June.
Mr. Kote also added his voice to call on hotels to be included in the free water supply.
The announcement that came was an omnibus one. In fact, the president did not specify that if you are commercializing it, then for you, you will not. Rather, it went further to say that those who have been selling water in their vicinity, okay, they should give their water free, and the tanker waters that they buy, government was going to pay it to them. Now, for water and sewage to make the argument that the hoteliers are running a commercial bit with it, okay, then the conflict of interest comes. If somebody who is selling water, government is going to pay for him.
and then the hotelier who is also not getting people to even occupy for him even to pay. That the skeletal type that they have over there, that one they expect him to pay. We think that is unfair.
So you heard it all from the General Secretary of the Industrial Workers Union, Solomon Korte. My name is Alberta Bisiu, reporting for Joy Business.
And that's Business Live tonight. As we head into the weekend, there's plenty to read on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We've got the day's latest there, including government eroding NDC's gains in the oil and gas sector. That's by Emmanuel Kofi-Boa, who is former energy minister. Also, what you missed on PM Express, we interviewed him as well. You can read all of that and plus watch the videos there on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for watching. We're back same time next week. Enjoy your weekend.